said, "In the existence of your love, I become non-existent." What he is pointing to here is that existence itself is love, and that the I that becomes non-existent is the egoic I. The only way to experience love directly as yourself is in the absence of the sense of I, the sense of me, the sense of individual. And in that absence, the direct experience of love is present. This ties directly into Ramana Maharshi's quote that says, "Your glory lies where you cease to exist." The you that ceases to exist is the egoic you. It's the person. It's the one that believes it's doing this life. And in that belief of doing this life, you veil your glory. And that glory could be tied to Rumi's quote of love. This is when the I, the egoic I, divests itself of its I, and what remains is the universal I. So when the I divests itself of I, all that remains is I. When the egoic I divests itself of itself, what remains is the universal I, the love of yourself. Only those who have the courage and the desire to know love directly can ever experience what is being pointed to by these two great masters. This meditation is dedicated to the ones who have the courage to let go, to divest themselves from their egoic self and rest in the universal I of love. There is always a conundrum that the ego encounters when it spends a little time in the world of non-duality, because it hears that there is this beautiful, permanent, peaceful place of serenity where all problems melt away and you experience a life of ever-present happiness. Yet, it comes across some information that it doesn't like. It doesn't like to hear that to quote unquote achieve this place, to achieve this way of being, that it has to be eliminated. And once it hears this, it has a real problem on its hands, because it wants nothing more than to experience this beautiful, peaceful way of living. But it has to not be there to experience it. And it's the biggest conundrum that it has, the biggest problem the ego will ever encounter. And it's not until you drum up the courage to at least peek in to a little bit within to see if this message is true, will the ego start to allow itself to fall back into its source. So this allowance, you could say, is a task. It's really the only task that the ego needs to perform. And again, that task is turning within and resting in yourself, in your being. And it's really quite that simple. Because the self, yourself, is home of serenity. Once you start to inherently understand the truth of this, will you allow self to carry more and more of the load of life for you? And you will start to realize that it will carry all of the load of life, all of the burden of life it will carry for you. And in that carrying for you is when this life of imminent peace is experienced. So this meditation is pointing you to that our only real meaningful task in life is to turn within and rest in and as ourself. And the love of ourself will carry all of the burden for us. May this meditation point you to the love of yourself. I'm going to attempt to have you experience the difference between self and ego. As I've mentioned throughout many of my videos and pointed to in other meditations, is that there's the self and then there's everything other than that. And this everything other than that is what we call the ego. And ego has an underlying presence of irritation to it. That's just the nature of the ego. Because as you perceive yourself as something other than yourself, and yourself is whole and contentment, then whatever it is you perceive other than that has to have some sort of underlying discontentment to it. Some sort of irritation and agitation, which can lead to all sorts of issues, primarily mental issues, being an apparent individual person or an ego. It could lead to, depression or anxiety, stress, or just never being
content with yourself, with life, no matter what it is you do, you just can't seem to calm down and relax into just being who you are. So that's what this meditation is about, is pulling the ego apart from self so that you can experience the loving qualities of yourself relative to the irritative ego.